besides the presenters, will keep their microphones on mute, that would be appreciated. I would like to introduce the Secretary of Human Services, Justin Brown.
Well, thank you so much, Teresa. Thank you all for joining. Sorry, I don't want to get in front of everybody there. It's great to see you all. My name is Justin Brown. I'm the Director of the Oklahoma Department of Human Services and the Cabinet Secretary for Human Services. And I want to tell you, this is a really exciting moment for all of us, really. This meeting, this Prebid conference for our TANF investment strategy has been one in the making for quite some time. It also represents a way in which our agency is once again pioneering across the country. I would tell you that no one is doing this across the country. We are a pioneer in this space, really intending to work in a different way with our partners across the community, recognizing that in the more than 1 million people served by the Department of Human Services, with about 6,000 employees, we can't do it alone, and we have to work really collaboratively with community partners all across the state. So this is, whether you recognize or not, it is an incredibly exciting event today. So thank you for joining this. Thank you for allowing us to build this process together. Because nobody's doing it, and this is the first one for us. This is the first one that's ever happened. So we appreciate your grace and understanding in how we do this going forward, and your acceptance. So as we make mistakes, we'll do it together. So anyways, with that, I would like to say thanks to our team for the last, I don't know, probably 6 to 9 months of work and putting this together. Hillary, who are handling the work today. We also have outside partners in PCG, a consulting firm that we've used to help build this mechanism. So with all of that, I just say thanks again for the opportunity to work together, and I'm looking forward to seeing the fruits of all of our labor. So with that, I'll turn it back to you, Teresa. Thank you.
Thank you. So just a few things, some important due dates that will be coming up is questions are due by 3 o'clock on June 3rd. Any questions received after that time will not be answered. All questions from what we've received so far and questions up through the 3rd will be on amendments, so please keep an eye on the website. This meeting, if you will need a recording of it, you can email me. I will also be putting that in the amendment that you can get a copy of the meeting. I ask that in the chat section that you let me know that you've attended. That way I can make sure that I send you a form that we will need you to sign and send with your bids. This will be a best value bid. It is not a lowest and best, it's a best value. And with that, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to Hillary.
Great, thank you, Teresa. We are so excited to see everybody joining the call today. I'm Hillary Burkholder, Director of Community Partnerships. And I wanted to give you just a little bit of history on our investment strategy. So as Secretary Brown mentioned, this is a really innovative strategy that we are the first in the country to take this on. We, the leadership team, recognized that we had a lot of TANF carryover dollars, and we wanted to be able to invest those locally into community organizations that were working with our TANF families. And so we started to think about how we wanted to do that and what our priorities were. So those were about finding allowable programming and the work that you all already do day to day, and to be able to tie investments directly to the goals of the agency and the goals of the TANF block grant. To do it in a transparent way and to really prioritize that public-private partnership effort so that we can maximize our resources and truly have an impact. And so when we began to look at that, we identified 6 key areas, and you can see those here. Those are tied not only to the goals of TANF, but they are also in alignment with the agency's True North goals. And so you'll see those kind of outlined here. They're the ones that have the TN next to them. And then you can further drill down and see what parts of our agency they apply to. But we identified these 6 areas, and the plan is to have investment cycles every 6 months that address one of those issues. We're starting out with family stability, which is the one that we're going to be discussing today and answering your questions about. But those are our goals and kind of where we're headed, and we will now kind of do an overview of TANF, and so I will hand it over to Paulette, who is our TANF program manager.
I think you're on mute.
Sorry. Thank you. I appreciate that. So thank you. Anyway, good afternoon. And we just wanted to provide a brief overview of the TANF program in order to give you a bit of context with the funding mechanism that's making this investment opportunity possible through the TANF program. Now, TANF is an acronym for Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. The funding is provided through ACF, or the Administration for Children and Families, within the United States Department of Health and Human Services. It provides time-limited cash assistance for low-income families and is funded by a combination of federal and state funding. And one of the primary goals of the program is to assist families in obtaining self-sustaining employment, ultimately moving families from public assistance and into the workforce. But what many people do not realize is that the TANF block grant also has the flexibility to fund additional programs geared to break the cycle of generational poverty, which brings us to why we are here today. And we also have our partners from PCG, Deb and Katie and Sarah, here with us today. So they may comment here and there throughout our presentation. And so I was just going to ask Deb, does anyone in your team have anything to add to that before I move to the next slide?
Nope, we're all set.
Okay, we'll move on to the next slide, please. So let's do a little bit of an overview and history of TANF. How many of you remember a past program known as AFDC? As you will remember, AFDC, or Aid to Families with Dependent Children, was an entitlement program set up to assist low-income families with children to meet their basic needs. With AFDC, there were minimal resources available to assist families in moving out of their current circumstances to self-sufficiency. Therefore, with the dawn of the 1996 Welfare Reform Act, the official term is the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, Temporary Assistance for Needy Families, or TANF as it's most oftenly referred to, was born. TANF was structured as a block grant program, replacing the AFDC entitlement program, as well as the job opportunities and basic skills training and the emergency assistance programs. TANF was structured this time as a time-limited employment and education program funded as a block grant that provided many more opportunities to combat the generational cycle of poverty. Deb, do you all have any additional comments to add to that?
Nope, we're good.
Okay. All right. The next slide, please. So we're going to talk a little bit about the block grant structure of the TANF program just for additional historical purposes. But as we've discussed, TANF has been around since its inception in 1996. During this time frame, the block grant amount has remained steady with no adjustments being made for inflation, the impacts on the economic cycles, or the caseload sizes. And in order for a state to receive the TANF block grant, each state does have to spend some state dollars to assisting eligible families consistent with the 4 goals of TANF, which we're going to talk about here in a few moments. This is basically what is known, the state portion of that is the maintenance of effort, or what you often hear referred to as MOE. As Oklahoma has continued to meet its TANF work participation target rates, we're only required to spend 75% of the state funds that we spent with AFDC back in 1994. And that's the formula that Congress set forth for us. So that's how that funding mechanism there goes. But anyway, at this present time, Oklahoma has been doing great with meeting their MOE. So we're not worried about our MOE at this time. Sarah, Deb, Katie, anything that you would add there?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, next slide, please. So a few minutes ago, I mentioned that there were 4 goals of TANF. And when Congress set up the TANF block grant, again, they provided flexibility in how these dollars can be spent in working with moving families out of the cycle of poverty, as long as the dollars were used on programs that fell into at least one of the 4 categories, hence the 4 goals of TANF. And goal number 1 is help needy families stay together with their children in their own homes. Goal number 2 is to promote self-sufficiency through job preparation, work, and marriage. Goal number 3, prevent and reduce the incidence of out-of-wedlock pregnancies. And 4, to encourage the formation and maintenance of 2-parent families. Next slide, please. So in that previous slide, we actually went over the actual 4 goals of TANF. This slide, we're going to break them down just a little bit more and provide examples of the types of programs that could be under that umbrella of each one of those goals. Goal number 1 would be considered family preservation and income support programs. In other words, this would be the category that helps provide basic ongoing needs. And some examples of those would be cash assistance, shelter, utility costs, and anything that would be considered a basic ongoing need. Now, under goal number 2, that would be employment and education programs such as adult education, high school equivalency, long and short-term training, as well as any supports that would be related to employment. Goal number 3 is based on out-of-wedlock pregnancy prevention, and this will be programs such as family planning programs and even after-school programs, youth mentoring type programs, youth summer jobs, any type of activity that keeps youth from participating in at-risk behavior. And goal number 4, this is the 2-parent family formation. This includes relationship building programs, parenting skills, fatherhood engagement programs, and some domestic violence programs. Now, before we go further, please let me clarify that we are not promoting any domestic violence victims to remain in an unsafe environment with their perpetrators. Our families' safety are of the utmost importance of this agency. And when we talk about domestic violence programs, we are looking at programs that work with the victim and their family to learn what healthy and safe relationships look like, as well as strategies to avoid unhealthy relationships. In essence, violence prevention. And this has the potential not only to positively impact the current nuclear family now, but also provide a positive impact on children involved to be able to identify safe relationship choices as they get older and begin having families of their own. Therefore, we tend to look at this as a long-term return on investment for those families. And overall, when we are working with families in poverty, long-term ROI can be just as important as short-term ROI. And it's a multi-generational approach, if you will. PCG team, do you all have anything that you would want to add in addition to this slide?
No, I'll just say that as you can see from the transition from the specific goal language to the program examples, the federal government has given some flexibility in defining what meets the purposes of TANF. And this particular RFP is focused on goal 4, as Paulette was just saying. That's it.
Great, thank you. Next slide, please. We did go ahead and put just a blurb in here on cash assistance because this is what so many people think that TANF is, even though it is more than just the cash assistance. But just so there is some clarity on the cash assistance side, I just wanted to give a little more information on that. So for a family that's an actual TANF recipient to receive cash assistance, the family can receive cash assistance for up to 60 months, 5 years, in a lifetime. Now, this does follow them nationwide, so they cannot use their 60 months in one state and then come to Oklahoma and start over with their 60 months. The months do follow them nationwide accumulatively, so it's 60 months all the way across the board. For cash assistance programs, the family must include a relative minor child who resides in the home. And I think there's been some questions about, well, what does the home mean? And home basically means wherever they are, as long as they are with that parent or relative caretaker. And for the cash assistance side of TANF, there are eligibility requirements that include an income test, asset test, deprivation of parental support, which can be absence, death, incapacity, and in some instances, underemployment and unemployment. There is a citizenship test where they do have to be U.S. citizens or qualified aliens, which would be lawful permanent residents and other groups such as refugees and asylees. And they would have to be willing to participate in TANF work requirements, pursuit of child support, and our substance abuse screening processes. However, like I said, this is under the assistance section under purposes, what would really technically fall under purpose 1. So, and we're working on purpose 4, and we just wanted to give you that background information on what that criteria would be if you knew of someone that, is actually needing that type of assistance. PCG, do you all have anything else that you would add?
Nope.
Okay. Next slide, please. And here we go. Going to talk a little bit about that assistance and non-assistance and what the difference is. So as we discussed earlier, assistance is any type of benefit, cash payment, or voucher that is designed to meet a family's ongoing need and their basic needs. So shelter, utilities, clothing, food, personal items, household goods, and so on. In the case of this particular funding investment, we are looking for non-assistant services. And the non-assistant programs and services that would be provided under TANF Purpose 4 would be programs that are other supports, but are not programs that provide basic ongoing needs. Anything you would like to add here, Deb?
I would say that there is one caveat in the TANF rules, which allows things like shelter or clothing to be provided as non-assistance if it's what's called a short-term non-recurring benefit. And that means it lasts less than 4 months in duration. So if there's a one-time payment to help a family get back on their feet in some way, that falls into the non-assistance category. Great. So the ongoing piece is important and is defined as more than 4 months.
Right, thank you. And next slide, please. Okay, again, this is our Family Stability Programs and TANF funding, and we have included this slide here as a quick reference. This is going to be something that you've seen in the RFP paperwork. We talked earlier a bit about income requirements, citizenship, and family composition requirements for families to receive TANF assistance. But just for clarification, looking back at the 4 goals of TANF goals 1 and 2 would fall under the category of the basic assistance, requiring all of those basic eligibility criteria to be established, which you can see in the chart showing under assistance. But TANF goals 3 and 4, most importantly for this purpose, TANF 4, which we're looking at today, can be considered non-assistance, as those services are typically not designed to meet a family's ongoing need. So for the purpose of this opportunity, there would not be the income, citizenship, family, household tests, nor would they have to be an actual TANF recipient to receive these services. And Deb, do you have anything to add on this one?
No, I'm good.
Okay, great. Thank you. Then I will hand the floor over to Keely as she is going to go over some of the questions that have been posed this far. Thank you. Keely?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Keely McEwen. I'm the Chief of Strategic Engagement at DHS. And now we are going to, for the duration of the conference, going to cover some of the questions that were submitted for the pre-bid conference question submission deadline. We're just going to go through these slide by slide, and I'm going to read them verbatim. So we will jump right in. The first question is, does their own homes mean their physical home or with a parent? The answer is no, their own home does not mean physical home. Homeless and other shelter programs meet the definition as long as the child is with a parent or relative caretaker. I do think Paulette covered that, but wanted to just reiterate it. Question 2, do domestic violence intervention services count as family stability services? Again, Paulette covered this, but just to reiterate, domestic violence intervention services are considered family stabilization when the services are intended to provide protection from an abuser and help the family seek safety and stability. These services help to protect a second generation, preventing the cycle of abuse and improving the outcomes that meet the purpose of TANF Goal 4. Next question. Attachment 8 states that this RFP is focused on TANF Goal 4, promoting family stability. But the chart on page 2 of Attachment A lists Goal 4 as encouraging the formation and maintenance of two-parent families. Are these the same goals, just worded differently? And the answer is yes, this is the same goal, worded differently. Next question, what is the range of grant amount awarded? OKDHS has not established a maximum or minimum amount per award. There is not a range provided because the amounts are dependent on each nonprofit's need and capacity. The most important thing to consider are that these are reimbursable dollars, so nonprofits must have enough cash on hand for up to 60 days of operating costs between expending the dollars and being reimbursed. Next slide, we have 2 questions that have the same answer, so I'll read both questions. If an organization's work is categorized within multiple TANF goal areas, does DHS recommend the organization apply to each goal area RFP or only one? And then the second question is, if an organization is awarded a grant for a particular TANF goal area, can they apply for another grant in another goal area? Looks like I missed a word there. The decision, and the answer is the decision to respond to multiple TANF goal areas will be up to the discretion of the individual organization. However, TANF funding will not be able to be doubled up for the same expenses, so clarity around what each funding stream is supporting is important. Question, how do you define assistance versus non-assistance? Paulette just covered this, but to reiterate that answer, services that provide basic income support are considered assistance. Those that do not, like case management, family counseling, parenting, education and training, or other similar support activities to normalize family functioning, would not constitute assistance. However, services like childcare and transportation, or payments to cover participation expenses like meals and uniforms, would be considered assistance if the family is not already employed. Next question, are there funding priorities for the grant? The current funding priority is for services related to family stability, including but not limited to A, programs to increase fatherhood engagement, B, family counseling, including marriage counseling and family mediation, C, parenting classes or parenting support groups, D, programs and services to prevent domestic violence, and E, programs and services to promote healthy relationships. Oh, this was a duplicate. Sorry, noticed it right before we started, but I didn't have time to take it out. Finally, do we submit one proposal for Oklahoma City and Tulsa, or submit 2 proposals, 1 for each area? The answer is yes. Please submit separate proposals for each region if you wish to be considered for an award in more than 1 region. So with that, that concludes us covering the FAQs that were submitted prior to the pre-bid conference. I am going to close this out with just a couple of quick reminders. One, that while our intent certainly is to build public-private partnerships through this process, we are in an open RFP at the moment. And so as much as we love to talk to all of you, we are prohibited through this process to engage in conversation or collaboration regarding the funding of any of these programs. And so just wanted you all to keep that in mind. And then just to reiterate some of the things that Teresa has put in the chat, all questions should not be, please do not submit questions to DHS. Please submit all questions. They must be in writing and directed to central purchasing. The deadline for the submission of all questions is on June 3rd. And then we will prepare and distribute answers to those questions following that deadline. With that, that concludes today's pre-bid conference. Thank you all for joining and participating. We all pray that you are safe in today's weather and have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Thank you.